I will live Asian MMA Q&A live chat, whatever you want to call it. Man, it seems like I just did one yesterday, but I guess it's been 1 week and we got a new guest, a first timer, Tom Taylor. Been watching you for a while, man. I think for
I
the
bet you.
last I don't even know how many years, man. Like just seeing you grind and put in work and just so you know, like most of the guys out there and lasting, I guess. I think that's the key, lasting longer than the rest of the competition and elevating your resume, and that's what you've been doing, man. Thank you so much for coming on
Man, great to be
to
here.
just
Thanks for having me.
bullshit or whatever you want to call it, right?
I love bullshitting.
Yeah. First thing is I wanted to jump on is Henry Cejudo, man. I know this is an Asian MMA live chat, but it's gonna tie in eventually. So Henry Cejudo, after he beats up Dominic Cruz, last weekend, he decides, okay, I'm going to retire, and we kind of saw this coming because he's been hinting at this for the last year or so about he wants more money and all of this stuff, and he might give it up, and I think he even hinted it this week during one of the interviews that he might retire and all that stuff, and nobody really paid attention to it. Nobody believed him,
Hmm.
but now we believe him. Like, hey, he's retired now, legit retired. Do you believe he's retired though, Tom?
I don't think so. I think I have the same opinion as everyone else. I mean, he's only retired until he gets the offer that he wants, and then he'll be right back in there. And I don't know if you saw last night on Twitter, he was going back and forth with the boxer Ryan Garcia. So he's already trying to set up these new paydays. You know what I mean? So I think we'll see him again one way or another.
I could see him getting into the boxing side because
Hmm.
boxing does pay more. He does already have a name in MMA, which will get him paid more in boxing. Ryan Garcia, uh, what does he fight at? He fights at
I don't
welterweight
know.
in boxing, which is like
He's a little
145
guy.
or something
Yeah,
like
I
that.
think it's even lighter than that right now. I don't remember
Okay.
exactly. But there's a lot of good fights at that weight. I mean, most of them would kill Cejudo, I think, but big fights to be made for sure.
Yeah, and it lines up perfectly with Zuffa boxing, if that's even
Hmm.
real. I mean, you
Hmm.
see the T-shirts and you always hear people talking about it, but you never see anything happen with it. So
I want to get one of those
if it
T-shirts.
does, there's a lot of guys I think in the UFC that would transition over to boxing if that was real and they
Hmm.
had the opportunity to box, over there. But going back to Cejudo, man, there's this big debate now of who's the best bantamweight of all time and who's the best flyweight of all time. So let's start with bantamweights. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like, you got Cejudo's, I guess, in the conversation. You got Dillashaw, you got Dominic Cruz, and is that it? Do you
I
think
think that's
that's
pretty
it?
much it. Yeah, I mean, you got Bibiano Fernandez and stuff, but I don't think a lot of people would include him in the debate just because he never made it to the UFC. But yeah, I would say it's really down to those three probably. But yeah,
Now, how would you rank those guys, those three, for the best in the UFC?
it's tough, man. I think I would probably put Cejudo at number one just because he did beat the other two. I mean, results. I mean, you can't. There's no substitute for winning, right? And he actually beat the other two guys, and he beat Dillashaw when Dillashaw was, had a little extra help. He beat Cruz obviously last weekend. I think there's no question that Cejudo is probably the best of the three. And then number two, that's a tough one, man. Cruz or Dillashaw. They had that very close fight. Dillashaw obviously has a little bit of a point against him because of the drug test failure. But Cruz, man, he never fights. I know he had this legendary run in the WEC and the early UFC, but he just never fights. How good would he have been, do you think, if he had actually fought more often?
Oh, I feel like he would have been the best
Mm-hmm.
bantamweight. But last weekend, we saw a shell of Cruz. Like, we
Yeah.
saw a guy that was just out there, just trying to take an opportunity, basically, and that's
Mhm.
what we saw. We didn't see the best Cruz, and I feel like we're never gonna see the best Cruz
Well, and
ever again.
he's got that famous herky jerky style, and it almost seems to me that people figured that out just like that. Like one day it was stumping everybody, and the next day everyone's like, "Oh, this is how you deal with that." And then since then, he's been having these really close fights, and losing. He lost to Garbrandt and Cejudo, and I mean, that style didn't seem to work for him in either of those fights. So I'm not sure. He said he wants to fight again, so I'm not sure how the next few years are going to look for him if he continues to fight.
So like I said earlier, this is gonna tie in with Asian MMA, and of
Mhm.
course, the guy that the last guy that beat Demetrius Johnson is Henry Cejudo. So if you go to the flyweight division, if you mix and match all the flyweights in the world, flyweights in history, right? You got Henry Cejudo, you have Demetrius Johnson, you have Koji Horiguchi. Who else do you have on the list of like the top flyweights ever?
I would say it's probably down to those three. I mean, I don't even know if you can include Horiguchi at this point, just because he's been at bantamweight for the last couple of years. But I would say it's those three, and of those three, I don't think there's any question that the Mighty Mouse is still the king. And the reason for that, I think, is he's 1-1 with Cejudo, and he beat his ass in the first fight, and the second fight was super close, and a lot of people thought Mighty Mouse won that as well. So, I mean, you look at the history between them, and Mighty Mouse is still way ahead on the scoreboard in their rivalry, I'd say.
Let's say Mighty Mouse didn't sign with one championship and he stayed with the UFC. I'm pretty sure they would have gave him a rematch against Cejudo
But he
immediately.
deserved it, yeah.
And do you think like that third fight would have played out much differently than the second one?
I think it probably would have been close again. It would have been really interesting to see what kind of adjustments a guy like Mighty Mouse could have made. He's such a great champion, such a smart fighter. And after getting pushed so hard by Cejudo, I expect he'd have some, really interesting adjustments to show us. Speaking of that matchup, though, I remember the first time I ever talked to Chatri Sichodong at one championship, right around the time that the UFC was culling all of its flyweight division. I don't know if you remember that. They cut like 10 flyweights or something in the span of a few weeks. And there was all this talk about the flyweight division shutting down. And Chatri said he'd be willing to sign a bunch of them, and specifically mentioned Cejudo, that he would love to sign Cejudo if it was possible. So who knows, man? Maybe they'll open their wallets and make that trilogy fight happen in one championship.
I'm completely down with one championship. I actually tweeted that out after he announced his retirement. I said, hey, if he's looking for money, because I knew once he announced his retirement at the end of that fight, I knew it was all about money. It wasn't really about his retirement. He's just like, if I'm not getting what I want, then I'm not going to fight. I'm going to go find something else to do. And I'm pretty sure he could be successful in anything he does. Because, hey, if you could be an Olympic champ, flyweight champ, the whole list, the whole resume.
Yeah.
He could do anything he wants, man. He could go around and do anything. So I was thinking, like, if he's looking for money, I actually don't know his contract situation. Do you know what it is like?
I think he still has some fights left on his deal with the UFC, because when he was going back and forth with Ryan Garcia, he tweeted Dana White and said, "Let me do this," or something, which kind of implies that he's, Dana still got him tied up. But speaking of one championship, I was thinking about that too. I'm not actually sure one championship would be interested in Cejudo anymore, just because he's become such a trash talker, which we know they're kind of opposed to these days. Like they like the honor and the integrity and stuff. And Cejudo isn't exactly the poster boy for honor with all the trash talk he's doing lately. So I'm not sure if they would be a good pairing anymore.
But it's an act, and he doesn't go too far. He doesn't do the Colby Covington where he's going like completely on the deep end. And I could see him switching things up if he did sign, because he doesn't have to trash talk if he goes over there. Like he feels like he does have to put on an act for the UFC, but in one championship you don't have to do that. You got like Shinya, he still talks trash, and he one championship. So we'll see what happens. But the thing is, like, I want to see him go over and fight Bibiano.
Yeah.
At 135, I want to go see him go over and fight Demetrius Johnson again for the trilogy. I feel like that makes sense more than him staying in the UFC.
There are
like he doesn't really have much left, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there are a lot of fresh fights for him in one championship. And I mean, what really is there for him in the UFC? I mean, he could defend his title against all these new contenders, but he doesn't seem interested in that. So, going over there and fighting some big names in Asia would be pretty exciting. I'd be on board for that.
Plus, he doesn't have to cut the weight, right? You're 125, you come in at 135, and at bantamweight you could come in at 145. So it's like, I wonder if that could be something that could, attract him over there to one championship. But I feel like if he goes over to one championship, if he could get paid more, right? That's number one. And then he could go fight Mighty Mouse for a third time. If he could beat Mighty Mouse for a third time, or that third time, get the 2 out of 3, and then he beats Bibiano.
There'll be no question. Yeah,
he's the greatest of all time, right? At like feather, flyweight, or bantamweight.
In any weight class, if he pulled off those two wins, I mean,
yeah,
those are huge wins for anybody in that weight class. And it's possible too, because I mean, Demetrius Johnson's still a very good fighter, obviously, but he's looked a little bit more human in his last few fights and one championship. You know, he's been challenged. I mean, that would be an interesting fight, especially if it happened at bantamweight or something like that. If Cejudo could convince him to come up, because Cejudo's kind of a big bantamweight. He's short, but he gets so wide when he's fighting at bantamweight. I couldn't believe how thick he was fighting Cruz. He's
Yeah,
I think
he was big.
mm-hmm.
He was big. He's just like a
Fire
like
hydrant.
SpongeBob
Yeah,
SquarePants,
exactly.
but muscular.
Yeah, muscle Bob. Yeah.
So yeah, so like I would, man, if Chatri, if I had his ear, man, I
Mm-hmm.
would like say, hey, try to figure out a way to get him over. You know, he's an Olympic champion. That's like what you want in the
Mm-hmm.
promotion. You want a guy that could carry that medal around and carry the
Yeah,
belts.
well,
Yeah, if he does go over and wins the flyweight and bantamweight title by beating both those guys,
yeah,
it's undeniable. He's probably up there with GSP.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, he's a beast.
Now, Horiguchi though, like with Horiguchi, I feel like he's still up there in the conversation as some of the one of the greatest of all time in the lower weight classes. What do you see next for him? You know, it seems like he's still coming back from injury, and in his last fight he was knocked out. Who do you like for him to come back to?
I spoke with him pretty recently for Asian MMA, James Goyder's site, and he said he expects to fight Kai Asakura again when he's healthy, and apparently he's already walking and fishing again. Like he's well on the road to recovery, but he's taking his time, and he expects to fight Kai again, whether it's for the title or otherwise. And I think, I mean, at this point, it would have to be for the title in Ryzen, just because the title is vacant. Who else are they gonna have in a title fight if not those two?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I heard some rumblings that Kai was set up to fight somebody else, but it wasn't Horiguchi.
Maybe that's just
in one of the upcoming events. So
it could be that
maybe it's just
It could be that Horiguchi is still injured. Maybe I don't know what the time frame is, but if he's going to be out till October or something, it would make sense for them to try to keep things moving in his absence.
I could see them fighting some other contenders to have both of them come in with wins to fight for the title.
That
would make better sense, because if you guys two guys coming off losses fighting for the title, that's kind of weird, right?
Yeah, it's true. It kind of diminishes the significance of the title. If you get some wins behind them, there'd be a lot more juice in that matchup for sure. It's a good idea.
With going back to Demetrius Johnson, he's gonna go fight Adriano pretty soon, whenever they start doing events again. How do you see that matchup? Do you see Johnson, kind of coming into his own? Because since he's kind of still been kind of getting his footing in one championship, and we're gonna still see the real Demetrius Johnson in this fight, or do you feel like Adriano has the ability to beat him?
I honestly don't know. I've thought a lot about that matchup, and I kind of go back and forth. I do obviously expect DJ to win, but I'm not sure. I keep flip-flopping between a decisive DJ win, the kind of win we're used to from him, and then another close fight, because Adriano's a beast, man. He really is. He's such a good grappler, and he's huge too for that weight class. He's going to be a lot bigger than DJ. Plus he's been able to train with all these monsters at ATT. I think he trains with Horiguchi sometimes. He's going to be very ready for that fight. And yeah, if he can use his size and his grappling and just kind of smother DJ, I can see that happening. I can see him giving DJ a lot of trouble. What about you?
I was talking to Martin Nguyen, and he was saying that Adriano is taller than him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's big.
Martin's the featherweight champ, and Adriano's the flyweight champ.
He's jacked.
Crazy.
He's not just like a tall flyweight. He's like just a huge flyweight, no matter how you swing it. So I mean, DJ's going to need to be really ready. And I was thinking, DJ works so much with Bibiano Fernandez. Bibiano would be a great guy to work with to get ready for Adriano, but obviously they're separated by an international border right now, and they can't train together. So, I think DJ will probably be missing Bibi in this camp.
Yeah, it's just there's no word on when the events will start back up yet, because it's not like the US where it's such a big country and most of the fighters are there and they can make matchups there. It's like all the fighters are in different countries, different continents, and just like what's gonna happen. But in my eyes, probably we'll see in June. We'll find out probably like what's gonna happen. So I don't see it lasting too much longer.
I
with
don't
the
think so.
events.
No. They can do something in Singapore, I think probably. I don't know where they would do it in Singapore, maybe at Evolve or something, but
Mm-hmm.
I think they could do events behind closed doors in Singapore somewhere. And, travel restrictions would have to loosen a bit. Like you said, that's obviously the main obstacle because, I mean, Singapore is their HQ, but I don't think they have that many fighters in Singapore. Certainly not enough to build a card completely out of Singaporean fighters. So they're going to need to be able to fly people in. I think that's the main obstacle right now.
All right, now moving along, we spoke about Ryzen, kind of keeping with that theme,
Mm-hmm.
and intertwining it with the UFC is Manel Cape, the former the Ryzen bantamweight champion. He's actually a flyweight. The
Mm-hmm.
reason why he fought at bantamweight is because there was no flyweights to fight, so he went up and fought all the best flyweight bantamweights and beat them all, and except for Horiguchi,
Mm-hmm.
and won the title. Now he's signed to the UFC. How do you think he'll fare against the competition at flyweight in the
Mm-hmm.
UFC?
Man, he's an amazing fighter, obviously, but he's a bit of a weird case. I just feel like he's one of these guys that you just never know what you're gonna get. Like I think he's on a 3-fight win streak now, if I recall. But before that, he lost 3 in a row, and it's just like, you just don't know what version of him you're gonna get. He's so wild and so unpredictable, and sometimes that's gonna work out for him, and I think sometimes that might cause him to be exposed, maybe get caught by a punch or taken down or something. Um, so it's going to be interesting to see what kind of game plans he brings into the UFC flyweight division. I think he's going to have to be. There's a lot of wrestlers in the UFC. He's going to have to be very careful and a little bit more measured. But I think if he fights smart, perhaps a little smarter than he has in the past, because he's usually so wild, I think he can have some real success. And I don't know about winning the title. It depends who has the title by the time he makes it there. But I think he can do really well.
The way I look at it is he could become what Peter Yan is
Mm-hmm.
for the flyweight division
Mm-hmm.
if he makes the right adjustments, right? Because he has the power, he has the skill set, he has the speed, he has the strength, he has everything. He has that natural ability.
Mm-hmm.
It's just I feel fight IQ,
Mm-hmm.
and elevating his skill set, and that's all it is.
I think he has.
And that's what yeah.
Yeah, I think he has the fight IQ, but he just gets carried away in his fights, maybe almost like Cody Garbrandt in his last few fights. I think he just loves to scrap. So if he can find a way to kind of keep a more measured pace, I expect him to do well. And he's an interesting guy too. And the flyweight division has kind of been hurting for interesting personalities to really stir up some interest. And Cejudo was doing it for about 5 minutes while he was a flyweight. Then obviously he went up to bantamweight. But I think Manel Cape maybe could drum up some interest just on the basis of his like crazy personality.
Yeah, Manel Cape is definitely a unique personality. He's a guy that will go to an event and get in the face of the other fighters, and like a Peter that it's not like manufactured. He really
Yeah,
wants to get in your face. You've seen it throughout the Ryzen events that
yeah, yeah.
he'll run out the ring and get into Horiguchi's face, and Horiguchi just sit there smiling, and that's all part of the entertainment factor, and he
And
brings
UFC
that.
fans
I
will
think the
love
UFC knows that.
that. Yeah, UFC fans will love that kind of just craziness, man. They love characters like that, so I think he'll be a real hit.
Yeah, I've spoken with him, and you've probably spoken with him plenty of times, and I felt like throughout his Ryzen career, he changed a lot in fighting wise and in training, and it almost seemed like he knew that he was too wild, and he kind of
Mm-hmm.
turned that back a little bit, even though he is still wild, and that's his trait that he has in the ring, but he kind of controlled it more. And
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like when he gets to the UFC, it's not like he's gonna win every fight, but when he
Mm-hmm.
does lose, he's gonna learn from his losses. And
Mm-hmm.
he's that type of fighter. And I can see him becoming a top 5 guy in the flyweight division. But I could also see him fighting at bantamweight too for some reason. I don't know why.
He strikes me as the kind of guy who will go where the opportunity is. So I think he'll probably start off at flyweight, and maybe if it doesn't go his way, or if he's not kind of excited enough by the matchups, then we might see him go up to bantamweight and see what he can make happen there. But I think he's going to do well at either weight class, man, as long as he's smart. And like you said, he's the kind of fighter. He seems like he's sort of developed a more measured approach, almost like Justin Gaethje did. Just he used to be such a wild man, but he's starting to kind of slow things down a little bit, and it's going to pay dividends, I think. He's such an animal, though, man. I'm so excited to see him fight. I hope he gets the title shot right away, honestly.
Yeah. Well, he told me that he was guaranteed a top 5 opponent right in his debut. So in flyweight, who's a top 5 guy that he would match up well with? You know, I would say just give him Figueroa or
Yeah.
Figueiredo right
Yeah.
away.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a perfect matchup. They're both crazy. You know, they're both big
Yeah.
creatures, aggressive. That'd be an amazing title fight for as long as it lasts. And
Even if it's not for the title, I would love to see that as like
yeah,
the first fight on a pay-per-view.
exactly. And I mean, that's the best. Even if, like you said, if there's no title on the line, that's just an amazing matchup. That's the best option for him, I think, in terms of just like the excitement of the matchup. Like you don't want to match him up with someone like Formiga in his first fight. No disrespect to Formiga, but Formiga will probably just take him down and like, you know, I don't know that would be nearly as exciting of a fight. If you want to introduce Manel Kape to people, you want to give him another crazy guy to fight, you know, and yeah, Davison would be just that for sure.
Yeah. It kind of remind me of like when like you mentioned Justin Gaethje when he debuted. Did he debut against Michael Johnson?
Yeah,
Is that
the
who he,
first fight, yeah.
yeah, it's like that kind of fight. I could see something like that happening
Yeah,
where
yeah.
they're just going back and forth.
And I mean, that's a winnable fight for him too. I think.
Mhm.
Like, imagine, I mean, he'd be a crazy UFC flyweight champion. That would be very good for that division, I think. And he speaks pretty good English too. You know, he could kind of click with the
Yeah.
North American fans as well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, he could speak English enough to where he
Mhm.
could sit at the press conference and go off on
Mhm.
people, and I can't wait till that happens. I can't wait until like some of these guys that are really good, and you see their personalities, but their English is not like up to par yet, but it's developing, and it's like Habib. You know,
Mhm.
before he didn't say anything, but
Mhm.
now he could get on there and he's like, "Send me location," you know, shit like
Yeah.
that. It
And
just
even
sounds better with his accent.
yeah, Wei Li too is learning English sort of slowly, and
Yeah.
I mean, we're just getting little glimpses of it now. But I remember when she was, you know, had that stare down with Joanna, she said something like "shut up" or something to her. You know, it was just a little teaser of what's to come. But you know, as she gets more confident with English, I think we're going to start seeing, or I mean, fans on this side of the world will at least see a lot more of her personality because they'll be able to understand her.
Yeah, when English is not your first language, 2 words can have much more impact
Mm,
than, let's say, an American fighter that says "shut up" to somebody during a face-off. You know, it's just different. And Habib, Whaley, all of them, you know, once they start getting better and better and better at English, it's just gonna be more fun for the fans. Let's go to a question over here. It's on the screen. It says thoughts on Christian Lee challenging Habib. You know, you've probably seen this going around a little bit. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, at this point, I think Christian Lee probably have as good a chance as anybody against Khabib, which is not good. You know, Khabib is going to kill anybody. I mean, even I think Justin Gaethje is going to probably get taken down and brutalized by Khabib. Christian Lee is an amazing fighter. His wrestling is really underrated. His striking is obviously very good. He's young. I think at this point he's just a little too young probably to fight Khabib, but you know, who knows? Down the road, I mean, he's growing exponentially every fight. So I mean, who knows? Maybe he would give him a good fight, but at this point, I don't think anybody is gonna really challenge Khabib all that much.
Yeah, only person is Gleison Tebow.
Yeah, man, I don't want to sabotage myself here, but I've been thinking for so long about writing an article about that fight, like interviewing Gleison and his coaches, because I mean, a lot of people thought he won that fight, and I went back and rewatched it, and he won like the striking, like he landed more strikes every round, stopped all the takedowns, like. He won that fight. You know what I mean? I would love to revisit that. Anyway, that's not Asian MMA, but just
Yeah,
yeah,
it is what it is. You
yeah.
know, it is what it is.
Mm,
Now, yeah, with Christian, I feel he's just like you said, he's only 21 years old.
mm.
He's already accomplished so much, but yeah, like he hasn't even like grown into his body yet
Yeah,
fully.
yeah.
His skill set is ridiculous already, but we don't even know what's going to be like in 5 years when he's 26,
I like
27, 28 or whatever. He could become the greatest fighter one championship has ever seen. We
I
just
think
don't know yet.
I think he can. I mean, he's obviously got the potential, but the fact that he's so young, the thing he needs to avoid is just a ton of wars in his early 20s. You know, if we see him get, you know, in all these crazy wars, by the time he's 24, he might be starting to show signs of damage and you know, the durability might fade a bit. But I think if he's able to keep winning quickly and, you know, winning decisively and avoiding taking a ton of punishment in his fights, I mean, I don't even know where the ceiling would be. He's just obviously so gifted and such a smart fighter too. So one day he might totally be in that kind of same rarefied air as Khabib. It's hard to say.
Yeah, he's got a ton of exciting matchups coming up.
Oh man,
Just
I don't
Murderer's Row
I
in
don't have
that
any.
division.
Yeah, it's brutal. You look at the guys he's gonna have to fight in the next year or two. It's
Yeah.
terrifying, man. I asked him about that. I'm like, does this stress you out at all? Like trying to go to sleep, each night, realizing that you're gonna have to fight all these guys in the next couple of years. Like, nah, man, it's all good. All right, it's crazy.
Yeah, he's a confident guy too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like he's that silent, confident guy, and he's always up for that challenge, which is important for any fighter. And I like his attitude, and I could see him losing to some of the guys, and I could see him beating some of the guys,
Mhm.
and he's gonna lose. You know what I mean? It's just part of the sport, but I just want to see him like in 5 years
Mhm.
and just marvel at like his abilities of just
The
like his
loss is
rest, because
really.
it's already his wrestling and his ground game and his striking is good.
Mhm.
And I just want to see when he gets that power. You never know, that power might come later, you know what I mean, where he gets that like one shot,
Mhm.
what knockout power, who knows? But it could be coming, who knows? Let's see what happens. Let's go to the next question. It says, oh, this one's easy. Does Manel Cape live and train in Japan? No, he does not live in Japan. He does not train in Japan. He trains in Thailand at AKA Thailand. And yeah, and he lives in Thailand too. So if you want to see him, go to Phuket and he'll be around.
He does love Japan, though. I think he's got like a real
Yeah,
connection to Japan and the Japanese people.
definitely. Now the next thing that I wanted to go over with you is some future matchups. Right now, Fight Island's the big talk of the town. June is supposed to be the start date of international fighters flying to some secluded island with a cage on the beach and the hotels and the training facilities for the fighters, and they could stay there for weeks. And it's Fantasy Island, it's that small guy. They're playing, that guy. And but anyways, they're gonna have to put some title fights together for that island too. And why not Zhang Weilei, right? Let's
Mhm.
look at her. And she's coming off that war with Joanna Jędrzejczyk, and man, who do you see next for her, man? It's like we didn't get to see Rose Namajunas fight Jessica Andrade, right? So you just throw Rose in there
I think you got
and
to do
just skip
the.
that fight.
I think you got to do the Joanna rematch, man. I'm a bit of a Joanna stan, always have been, but that fight was so good. It was so close. A lot of people thought the judges got it wrong. Joanna has, I mean, obviously such an amazing resume, so many accomplishments as the champion of that division, and Weili's, the new blood, the new champ. I mean, the storyline writes itself. It's such an easy matchup to make. They both want it. I think. I mean, that makes all the sense in the world, and that gives time. It gives Rose and Jessica Andrade time to maybe fight and produce the next contender.
Man, it's just I can't argue against the Joanna rematch, man. Especially both of them live internationally. I feel like Joanna's in her home country right now, and Zhang Weilei is back in China, I believe. So, if you could get them a couple weeks of camp, why not throw them on that island and see
Perfect
what
option.
happens?
Yeah, exactly. And I'm sure they both
Yeah.
love a little trip to paradise. Especially Joanna. I guess it's probably starting to warm up in Poland now, but she's had some cold weather over there. I'm sure she'd love a little beach vacation. I don't know what the weather's like in Hebei or wherever Weili lives in China, but I'm sure they both jump at the chance for a little beach retreat.
Yeah, definitely. Well, the island, it makes it very interesting, the matchups that they can have, because if the island is only for international fighters, does that mean fighters in the US can fly to the island, or is it just international fighters going to the island and matching up against each other? It almost seems like that's what the plan is, right?
Thinking about that too. I don't think that makes sense. I mean, because it's almost like you'd have two leagues. You'd have the American League and the International League. You're gonna have these guys fighting each other. So at some point, you're gonna have American fighters fighting international fighters. So I think they'll probably start flying American fighters there too, if for the right matchups. I don't think they'll do it if they don't have to. But if there's a big fight they can make on Fight Island, I think they'll probably fly Americans out for it.
Can Canadians fly to the States right now?
I think the border's still closed. It's been closed for a few months, which is weird because I mean, I think it's one of the most like open borders in the world, and it's just been completely shut down. Like I said, Bibiano Fernandez can't go train with DJ right now, even though they're only separated by like an hour drive or something. So I think it's still shut down. So Canadians would be definitely some of the fighters going down to the fight island, which I'm sure we'll all love because it's really cold here.
I wonder if they'll most likely allow, you know, media. Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that. You know, the whole like uproar about the media having to sign some paper about sign some contract or waiver or something, and then about like disparaging comments, or they could get sued, or you know, there was like a bunch of stuff. It's so weird, man, how one guy will put out something, right,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like half truths,
Mm-hmm.
and then John Morgan will come out and talk about what actually happened because he's there.
Mm-hmm.
and and you know, I feel like John Morgan's a trusted journalist, you know what I mean, inside the MMA world, right? It's not like he's out there uh spreading false information or fake news or anything like that. So what are your thoughts on that whole like thing that's going on right now with that, with this waiver thing?
Yeah, I mean, I think if there was actually like a, what do they call it, a disparagement clause or something in the contract, as a member of the media that wants to be taken seriously as a journalist, then maybe don't sign that. But I think, I mean, there's not that many real true journalists in MMA. A lot of these guys are just, you know, sports writers and sports reporters, you know, looking to get interviews with fighters and stuff. I think for guys like that are just trying to get some content out, who haven't had any real opportunities for content in 2 months, I mean, we can't be that hard on them if they're signing these waivers to go and get interviews and go cover live fights again. This is their job, and they haven't been able to do it. So I definitely understand why a lot of them were willing to sign this thing, and I think a lot of the criticism is a little overblown because they're just trying to, you know, do what they love to do and do what puts bread on their table. But yeah, if you're masquerading as, you know, a hard hitting, you know, truth chasing journalist, you know, completely objective, then maybe don't go signing things that say you can't speak your mind.
Yeah, and I don't really see investigative journalists going to events, right? They're not
Exactly.
the type
Yeah,
to cover shows.
exactly. Most of these people are just, you know, looking for post fight interviews and all that. So I mean, I don't really understand the criticism personally.
Yeah, it's a lot of people like to throw rocks from like across the street, you know what I mean? That's what they like to do. So
And people love hating the media too. You know, it's they're
yeah.
easy scapegoats. I don't think it'll ever change. So just got to accept it.
Yeah, it's just, well, it's media, people hating the media, and then media hating the media. You know, it's just
You know, so much animosity, you know, between the various members of the media.
yeah,
Yeah, it's always
yeah.
kind of funny to watch that unfold. You know, just the bickering reporters and stuff.
It's a trip, man. I kind of try to stay away from all of
Oh
that.
man, me
Don't
too.
try to be
Me
involved in
too.
none of that stuff.
Yeah,
It's like I'm just doing my thing, man, and I'm
exactly.
over here. If you got beef, then you know we could handle the beef like elsewhere, not like
Yeah,
online. You know what I
on
mean? What's the
Twitter.
point of going online with beef? It's
Exactly,
then
man.
it's fake.
I'm with you.
Then it's pro wrestling.
Exactly. Exactly.
All right, now going back to the UFC strawweight division, you got Yan Xiaonan. She is like probably one of the main up and coming contenders, man, in the division, and you got her, basically her teammate. She's the champion. So where do you put her? How do you line her up next? A lot of people are saying that if she gets one more win, she could be the number one contender in the division, but I don't think so because
Yeah,
there's too many girls in front. You know, like there's Tatiana Suarez. You know what I mean? Like I feel like she's the number one contender
I think so.
behind Joanna if
Yeah.
Rihanna gets the rematch, right? So
Mhm.
who do you put Jan against? Like if you look at the rankings, you got Jan at 11, Cynthia Calvillo, she's a flyweight now. Marina Rodriguez, Michelle Watterson, Carla Esparza, Claudia Gadelia, Nina Ansaroff, and then the rest is like probably fighters that wouldn't fight Jan. So if you look
Mhm.
at the middle of the pack ahead of her, you got Carla, you got Claudia. I think she's fighting this weekend,
Putting Angela
right?
Hill. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, Angela Hill, and then you got Carla, you got Michelle Watterson, you got Marina Rodriguez, and Cynthia Calvillo ahead of Jan. Do
Mhm.
you see any of those matchups lining up really well with for Jan?
I actually had the opportunity to sort of think about that the other day because I was doing a matches to make article for Bleacher Report. So I had to sort of look at the lay of the land of that division when I was trying to figure out what should be next for Carla Esparza, Michelle Watterson. And, like you said, Yan is, I think she's ranked 11th, you said.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, she's probably got a few more wins, I think, before she gets a title shot. So they may as well just kind of like work her through the rankings slowly. If she's 11th now, give her number 9 or something, which is maybe Michelle Watterson now or Marina or something. I think one of them would be good. Maybe match her up with Michelle. Carla Esparza could be a good fight too for her, and that'd be. I mean, if she can beat Carla, that's a great scalp to have. Former champion. Carla's obviously a very good wrestler. So I think Carla Esparza would be great if they want to match her up with a winner. If not, then they could do Michelle Watterson. That's another big name for her. And then they could do the fight with Marina Rodriguez, who's obviously kind of a prospect in a similar vein right now. But I think they should probably keep those two separated for now because they both have pretty bright futures.
Yeah, I feel like Carla Esparza, Michelle Watterson, they just fought. Carla won, right?
Yeah,
It was a very close fight.
Close. I think a lot of people disagreed with the decision.
Okay, so either way, Jan could fight either one. I look at Carla as more beneficial for her if she goes in there and fights her and beats her, because like you said, former champ. But the Michelle Rodriguez matchup, I feel, will be more exciting to watch.
But again, I think both of those girls have very bright futures in the division and, could be a win or two away from a title shot. And it's one of those things where you almost don't want to have the two rising contenders fight on the way up because then one of them is, knocking the other off course. And if you just kind of build them up separately, then they both get title shots and they can fight when they reach.
I mean Michelle Watterson, not Marina Rodriguez.
Yeah, Michelle Watterson.
Yeah, I feel like Michelle Watterson's the matchup with Michelle Watterson would be more exciting.
Yeah,
and the Esparza will be more beneficial.
Right. Yeah. Well, Watterson's always in great fights. I mean, so I think that might be the fight to make. And then Esparza's riding a win. She could fight someone higher up the division. If Joanna gets a title shot, Esparza could fight Tatiana Suarez or something. There's a lot of fun matchups to make in that division, though. I'd have to look at the list to really think what I want next, but yeah, a lot of great fights there.
All right, let's go to another question here. We got WW1 World War I Tim. I think he fought in World War One, for sure. But do you see one ever letting Christian go to the UFC, and who would the UFC give to one for Christian? That's an interesting question, right? If they do make a trade, who would you trade for Christian Lee?
Man, that's a tough question. First of all, I don't think one would ever cut ties with Christian. I mean, he's a franchise player for them. He's been there since the beginning, and they put a lot of muscle and energy into kind of promoting him.
He's Kobe.
Exactly. Yeah. He's turned. They've turned him into one of their homegrown stars. So I don't imagine they'd let him go, at least not anytime soon. But if they did trade him, having said all that, I think they would want somebody, a big name with a lot of upside in return. I don't think they'd trade him for like a veteran with a big name because Christian has such a bright future. You want somebody, if you're going to trade him, you want someone else that is going to give you a lot of good fights and stuff. So I don't know who that would be. I'm not sure.
Maybe we do a multiple player trade.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You get Christian
for like Weili Zhang or something, because one's trying to crack China right now. Yeah, I don't think the UFC would ever do that because they obviously value Weili Zhang, but something like that, so someone that one championship could really use as they look to kind of further expand through Asia.
Definitely, that would be a good trade, and I agree with you. Christian will never go to the UFC. Well, you can never say never, but I'm just saying that it's franchise player. It's Kobe Bryant. It's Tom Brady. You know what I mean? Like these are guys that you never trade. But yeah, if they do trade, I feel like it'd have to be a multiple player deal. Like you'd have to give a couple guys for Christian Lee because Christian Lee's so young. He's only 21. I can't really think of who exactly you could give. Maybe Henry Cejudo and somebody else.
That might be a good one, actually. Cejudo kind of looking to go do other things. That could work. I don't think one would part with Christian, but if they were going to, I think trading for somebody like Cejudo would be a pretty good deal for them.
Definitely. Well, now let's go back to the Korean Zombie, man. They just recently announced that the UFC is gonna put together the rematch between Max Holloway and Alex Volkanovski. I think Dana White came out and said that that's what they're looking at, and but they don't know exactly where they're gonna do it. It could be on Fight Island, but I doubt they're gonna do that. They're gonna try to get Volkanovski stateside and do it in, in a pay per view type setting. I'm pretty sure. So that means the Korean Zombie is the odd man out because I thought he was trying to get either fight, right, either Max or either Alex. So
Mm,
who do you see him fighting? I mean, he has to fight somebody. He can't just sit around and wait because you don't know when you're gonna fight again.
mhm.
Who is the guy?
Well, I guess Ortega would be the obvious option if he's healthy, and provided the UFC is willing to do matchups featuring international and American fighters on Fight Island, because it would have to happen on Fight Island. Ortega would be a good option. They could always do the Yair Rodriguez rematch. I mean, that fight was really good, and the Korean Zombie was winning until the second he wasn't. So that would be good. Calvin Kattar would be good. I mean, there's so many good options for him, but I think the Ortega rematch. I mean, the buzz is there now because of that little confrontation they had. I think that would be the one.
Yeah, like if it's international,
Mm-hmm.
like I would see the Zabit. You could
Yeah,
put because Zabit is actually ranked higher than the Zombie,
yeah,
I
yeah.
believe right now.
Mm-hmm. And Zabit
And
is a big name. He's beating a lot of good guys, but he still doesn't have that like really recognizable name on his resume. And I think, yeah, the Korean Zombie would definitely satisfy that. So,
in a 5 rounder, I feel like they would make that a main event. And if it's 5 rounds, that only gives the advantage to the Zombie,
oh,
right? Zombie
sure.
carries the power advantage. I feel like he has the cardio advantage.
Mm.
But Zabit is just too funky, right? Like
Yeah,
he's just
and he's so
funky.
long too. He hits guys from such weird angles and weird distances and stuff. He's gonna. I mean, he's problematic for anybody, I think. But Korean Zombie would definitely have a lot of advantages in that fight. That's a
Do you
great fight.
see the Zombie fighting for that long? You know what I mean? He's gone through so many injuries and surgeries and I don't know, man. Like in my opinion, I feel like he only has a couple years left because
Mm-hmm.
his body's just falling apart. He's the
Yeah,
Zombie.
yeah. I've never spoken to him or anything, so I don't really know, where his head's at on retirement and stuff like that. But yeah, just based on the fact that he's been in so many wars, he has had a few tough knockout losses over the years. There was, I think, it was George Roop knocked him out a while back,
Mhm.
like years ago, and then obviously the Rodriguez knockout. I mean, losses like that take a toll. And he is, I mean, he's in his mid-30s now, right? How old is he? He's probably closing in on
Yeah.
40. So yeah, for guys in the smaller weight classes, for some reason, don't tend to fight, into their 40s the way heavyweights do. So I think, yeah, a couple more years for him is probably all we have, which sucks because he's, I mean, one of the most exciting guys in the game. But hopefully they give him a title shot again soon. Because when
Yeah, we need that.
if it's limited time only with him, like let's make the title shot happen soon. We need it.
Yeah, we need it, man. We gotta give him something, man. We gotta give Korea something. Come
Yeah.
on. At
Oh,
least something, man. But who knows? Hey, let's go back to the question. We got Dale Clark. He says, guys, I need advice. Man, age 27, UK. Last few weeks been chatting to a woman from Tibet, China online. Oh, it's interesting. I like her a lot, but yesterday she told me they might cut her internet. I think she's gonna ask to me too. And then this continues here. Send money. What should I do? I never felt this way before. Tom, come on. What does he gotta do, Tom?
I don't know. My first thought is don't send the money, man. This could be a Nigerian prince situation, like just
No, it's a
some,
Tibetan princess. It's a
yeah,
Tibetan
I know.
princess.
Just kind of, some elaborate online scam, but I don't know, man. If you've really fallen in love with this Tibetan princess, then, I don't know. Bide your time, I guess, and then when the pandemic subsides, jump on a plane and go find your queen, man. That's the point.
That's the first what is it, relationship question
Yeah,
we've
yeah.
ever had here. So
Maybe just become
thank
a.
you, Dale, for sending Tom your relationship. Maybe he could be writing some columns for Cosmopolitan magazine or something in the future. Who knows, man?
I'm thinking about branching out into the field of love. So yeah, why not?
Awesome, awesome. Another here actually, this was something that I wanted to go over with you guys with you. This is a fight that's coming up this weekend. It says, how do you guys see Song Yadong versus Cheeto Vera going this weekend? Remember, it's going to be at featherweight too, so
No, it
they
is.
don't have to cut. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a really good fight, man. I'll have to look at the rest of that card. That's the Saturday card, right? Not tomorrow.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Saturday.
I'd have to look at the rest of that card. I haven't really given the lineup that thorough of a look, but I mean, that's got to be one of the best fights on the card, just on paper. Those guys are both so exciting. Um, I think Song has a huge upside, but at this point, Marlon Vera has been around a little longer. He's fought some bigger names. I kind of think I'd maybe give him the edge just based on experience. But man, I don't know. That's a tough fight to call, and I'm definitely confident that it's going to be a banger for as long as it lasts.
Yeah, it's Song Yadong is ranked 14th and Vera's ranked 15. So it's like
Vera was ranked.
what
Actually.
what are they fighting for right there, man? Like they're like right next to each other.
Yeah, I don't know, and they're fighting at featherweight too. So does that even have any bearing on the bantamweight rankings? I guess it probably will.
Exactly. So, if I had to give it a favorite in this fight, I would go with Chito Vera. I think that, like you said, he's more polished. He has more ring time. He's been in some dangerous and terrible situations in the octagon. Song Yadong's still a little bit green, but he has actually both of them have pretty good knockout power.
Big power.
Do you think Song has more power than Vera?
Maybe like one punch power, but I think Vera's probably. I mean, he's got such varied offense. I think he can probably put the combos together better. But I think he might have a bit of a chip on his shoulder in this fight too, just because I think he's had a few fights canceled over the last few weeks, and he seems like the guy who really likes to fight. I think when he's getting fights canceled, he's probably getting more and more frustrated and more angry, and we're going to see a very, very aggressive Chito on Saturday night, which is probably not going to be good for Song Yadong. And Song Yadong, his last fight was that draw, right?
Yeah, with Cody Stamen.
Yeah, he was sort of exposed a little bit in that fight. I think he's still got a really bright future, but that fight sort of showed that he's got a lot of room to grow. And I think if Chito is able to kind of capitalize on the mistakes that Song Yadong made in that fight, he should be able to win.
Yeah, but with that said, it's totally different matchups, totally different styles, but Vera's ability to come at different angles and fight in different positions, you know what I mean? I feel Song Yadong always fought in the positions that he really preferred, and Vera will probably put him in some awkward positions, and I think that would be the advantage for Vera. I see him going in and most likely winning this fight against Song and kind of giving a reality check to Song, like, hey, you're good, but you're not that good. You got to get back in there and push a little bit harder and work harder, and you're still young. Because I think Song Yadong is like, what, 22? I saw him in China. He looked so young, man. He looked like a kid, like a high school kid.
Right. I mean, I really like him, and I like Chito too. That's one of those matchups where I don't really want to see either guy lose, because there's so many great fights for both of them at bantamweight, and if they lose, it sort of diminishes some of the momentum they have right now. But yeah, I think you nailed it, man. I think Marlon Vera's just got a little too much experience, a few too many tools, maybe just a little bit smarter just with all the experience he has. So yeah, I expect him to win this one.
All right, now let's go back to the let's see what this guy is saying.
More relationship.
Oh, Dale is back. Oh shit. My online babe. What is wait. Let's go back to the first one. I know it's random awkward, but man, I really like this woman. She is real. Reek, which means real, I guess. We chat on Skype and WhatsApp daily. So she isn't a man, and it seems so she isn't a man. Okay, seems sincere. I know it sounds weird. My online babe tells me she lives with monks and apparently in Tibet. Man, this guy is in some deep trouble. We need to you need to stop watching us and go to Dr. Phil.
Yeah, seriously.
In another YouTube channel, man. We can't go that deep into your relationship, man. We don't know what's going on. Let's go to this guy. World War I, Tim, again. If the Asian Contender Series takes place on Fight Island, what prospect would you like to see the most compete? This is a good question, man. The Asian Contender Series, I heard that it's just like postponed indefinitely. China's not in the best of shape right now to be doing Contender Series, because they'd have to fly in fighters from across Asia to fight the Chinese fighters, and right now it's impossible. If one championship can't do events, how do you think the Asian Contender Series is going to happen? It's not going to happen. What prospects? I feel like, I'm gonna let you talk, Tom, but I feel like later on I'll get into this more as the Asian Contender Series becomes a reality more. But do you see any? Do you see any guys or women, in Asia that could fight on this?
Well, when I first heard of this Asian Contender Series thing, my first thought was like, is this going to include Australia and New Zealand? Because I mean, it makes more sense for them to fly to China or wherever this is happening than it does for them to fly to Vegas, I would say. And if they are, and I've actually heard that this will apply to fighters down in that part of the world as well. I'd love to see Chelsea Hackett on Contender Series, because I think she's a beast, got a ton of potential, a couple pro wins now. She would be one of my first picks. And actually, I saw you posting about all these Korean prospects and stuff, they're signing with one championship. I'm just not familiar with the Korean scene, so I want to be introduced to a bunch of up and coming Korean fighters. And I think Contender Series would be a great way to do that.
Yeah, they've already been talking about a few that are like holding back from signing with any other promotions because they want their shot at the Contender Series, and this COVID-19 really fucked them up. You know what I mean? Like, they actually turned away fights because they wanted to get on the Contender Series, and then this COVID-19 just extended their layoff to like 8 months, 10 months, like a year. Some of these guys have been waiting, and
I was actually
shitty.
I was talking to a few managers about that in the United States, just how much Contender Series has sort of changed the landscape for up and coming fighters. Back in the day before Contender Series, the managers would seek out regional fights and try to build their guys up like that. But now they said, Contender Series is just such a priority. You want to get on Contender Series if you can, because it's the kind of a shortcut to the UFC. So I mean, a lot of these managers and stuff have just totally shifted their focus from looking for regional fights and regional titles to just the fastest route possible to Contender Series. Totally changed the way they do things.
Yeah, and at the same time, it could kind of, be a disadvantage to some fighters because they just sit out for too long and just wait, and then they didn't get on unless they have a manager or an agent that is very close, with the contenders or with the UFC. And it could help them. And I think that's a big key too, to get on the Contender Series, is having the right management. It's not like you're just going to be some prospect out in Cambodia and your record is like 39-0. They're not going. You need to have representation, I feel like, to get on the Contender Series. It's not just going to happen out of thin air.
I sort of wonder how they're going to recruit for the Asian Contender Series, because one championship has been so good about going out into places like Cambodia and the Philippines, and Myanmar, like all these places where it's harder to keep track of rising prospects. I don't really expect the UFC to do that. I think they're going to focus on the bigger, more developed markets like China, Japan, maybe Australia. Like I said, I don't expect them to go really exploring into these smaller Asian countries. I'd love it if they did, but I don't really see that happening.
Yeah, well, a lot of the Asian fighters are signing with international agencies or management stateside, which is very helpful. You know what I mean? Because how many managers in Asia do you know that are close with the UFC?
Yeah, exactly.
I can count on my hand how many. You know what I mean? So there's a couple in Japan, and there's maybe one or two in Korea, and maybe one or two in Thailand, but that's about it. Maybe a couple in China too, but it's very rare. So a lot of these fighters, they have to be smart and align themselves with the right management and try to find their way that way. And plus, you got to have a winning streak, and you got to have a belt. Sometimes a belt helps, in a regional promotion. It all depends, man. But yeah, I think like the Contender Series Asia is going to educate a lot of people on like the talent in Asia. And like you said, I hope they do also bring fighters from Australia and New Zealand up, to China and have them fight. But from what I heard, they're not going to do that. I think they're going to send all the Australian fighters to Las Vegas and have them fight on the real Contender Series. You know what I mean? Like, it's weird, right? It's like there's Contender Series Asia and then the real Contender Series. But and I heard that even if you win on the Contender Series Asia, that doesn't even really guarantee you a contract with the UFC. You could win on the Contender Series Asia and then go to the Las Vegas Contender Series and fight somebody over there.
Wow.
So they're maybe creating their own league of Contender Series.
Right. There's a lot,
like a B league.
Through. lot of traveling to do to make it to the UFC, man. I wonder if a lot of fighters are going to be willing to do that. When we have to prove so much to make it to the UFC, it might be easier for some of them just to join one championship or Ryzen, you know?
But the thing is, like, if you're a 5-0 fighter and you could fight twice and get to the UFC, why not? You know what I mean?
That's true. That's a good point.
Yeah, so I feel like the UFC is going to try to pick these fighters up when they are like 5-0 or 8-0 or 7-0, and you don't have to build these long, deep records. Like, if you notice, that's a very common theme right now with the Contender Series is guys that are like 30 fights or 20 fights. It's very rare. You know what I mean? You see a couple here and there, but it's not something that's common. So I'm excited to see it, man, because I'm gonna, like, even though I'm over here, I'm gonna see some fighters that I never heard of, especially from China, because China's so closed off that. But I know there's a couple girls in China right now that are monsters, man, and they're supposed to be on that Contender Series.
Yeah, it's going to be a great way to get acquainted with some of the talent over there, particularly in China. I mean, you got just imagine how many good fighters there are in China right now that haven't been discovered yet. I think Legacy Fighting Championship is kind of discovering some really solid talent over there. But once the UFC starts really pushing into China, I think we're gonna be kind of flabbergasted by the amount of killers that come out of that country.
Yeah, the UFC Academy that they have running over there with all the Chinese fighters, and I've been watching them, and a lot of them were in Phuket for like a month or two because the PI was closed due to the coronavirus. So they're all down there training with like the fighters there, you know what I mean, like the UFC fighters and stuff like that. And they're telling me, man, some of those girls are just monsters. Like they're like Terminators, you know, like Chinese Terminators. And I'm just like, man, I can't wait to see the fight, you know, some of the other Asian fighters. It's gonna be fun. Yeah, like what else we got here? Okay, let's see this guy. Damn, this guy's got a lot of questions. World War Team 1. Do you think TAM is a good camp for Asian prospects? He names a bunch of Asian prospects. Yeah, I don't see why TAM is not a good camp for Asian prospects. You know what I mean? They've created some of the best fighters of all time in the lower weight divisions. What do you think, man? Like Team Alpha Male?
I think they've already proven that they're a good home for a lot of these guys coming over from Asia. Another one that's been training there is Lee Kai-Wen. He was there for a while. I don't know if he still is. I don't know where he is right now with this pandemic business. I assume he's back in China. But yeah, I mean, it's worked out for most of the Asian fighters that have gone over there to Sacramento, with the exception being Ishihara. He kind of fizzled out, I think, pretty quickly. But yeah, why not? You know, there's a lot of assuming these guys are fighting in the lighter weight classes, then why not? If you're a heavyweight, then don't go to Team Alpha Male. But if you're a lighter fighter, why not go there and try to get some rounds in with all the killers there?
Yeah. Like, I know the Korean Zombie was there for a while too in the earlier parts of his career. So, you know, he's learned a lot from Uriah Faber. I only hear good things about him, man. Like there was all that beef with Dwayne Ludwig, but I heard that Uriah Faber was the nice guy in that situation. This is what I heard. I don't know if it's true or
So
not.
much drama all the time.
Yeah. Now another question says, any thoughts on any possible matchup for Joshua Pascio, the one strawweight champ? Man, let me look up the rankings, man, because let me look this up. Joshua Pascio, right? He's the champ. Number one contender is Yusuke Saruta. Number two, Yoshitaka Naito. Renee Catalan is number 3. Alex Silva is number 4. Lito Adewang is number 5. Yes, I feel like he's fought all those guys already.
Lito, he fought Saruta and I think he knocked him out. But then Saruta bounced back in Tokyo. I can't remember if it was the first show in Tokyo last year or the second one. But he fought in Tokyo last year and got a crazy knockout win that kind of put him right back in the title contention. So that I can see that being the one they do. And that's a great fight, even if he's already fought him before. If they don't do that, I don't think Lito's ready yet. I mean, he's one of the guys they found on One Warrior Series. Trains at Team Lakai, so he's obviously a beast, and he's training with beasts, which is a good sign. But I mean, I think a title shot at this point would be a little premature. Although I'm surprised that I didn't even realize he was in the rankings. I guess I didn't look at that division. But yeah, I mean, I think he needs a few more wins, and Saruta is probably probably the best option right now.
All right, well, we're running on the hour mark, and man, it was good having you on, Tom. Man,
Yeah,
it seems like, man, we've only been talking for like 10 minutes. I don't know why, man. It flew by so fast.
time flies when you're having fun. This was great.
Yeah, man. Well, tell the people that are listening right now and that will be listening after this is over, where we can find your work and anything that you got coming up in the future.
Cool. Yeah. Well, my social media handles on pretty much everything is Tom Tay MMA. I don't know if that's showing up there. Work on bjpen.com, Bleacher Report, South China Morning Post, Japan Times recently. And I've actually got a pretty big interview dropping on Bleacher Report today. I think it's already published. Interviewed Daniel Cormier last week. So that'll be up today. Yeah, that's about it. Just follow me on social media if you're interested in my ramblings. That's where you'll find them.
Awesome, man. Yeah, man. Congrats on the Japan Times, man. That's pretty big, I feel. And yeah, man, getting the bigger names. I see it every interview coming up is just like bigger and bigger and bigger. Always good to see people grow and know them when they're not big time yet. You know what I mean? Like you're on your way to big time, but knowing them when they're on their rise is always the best.
I'll see you at the top.